Weird! Together again!
Together at last!
Together forever! People love it when we do this, I think. I don't know the rest of the words. Yeah.
I could go on, but I won't torture you anymore with my Annie singing, because, you know, it was the one play that being a redheaded homely child.
You were not homely.
I know, but like being a redheaded child, it was like the epitome of the perfect, like it's a dream role. Mm-hmm. Like it's made for me.
After sicknesses and kid sicknesses and more sicknesses, which I haven't gotten. Let me just say, Griffin, Rich, both been wicked sick. I got it. You got sick. Ruby
Today it's more like this past weekend we were busy. You were busy. I was at home nursing a bad back.
You got a puking kid.
Not this past weekend.
This past weekend. Oh yeah, today's Monday. Yeah, today's Monday, so you're getting this late.
Sorry.
With my research, I had a wedding to do and pictures to edit, and plus my research wasn't done because I took a deep dive. And I was like, to get this to be good the way I want it to be, I need a little extra time. So that's why. That's why you're hearing this slightly late. But that's okay.
It's okay. It'll be even better.
Yeah, because I took
worth
the time.
The wait, Colleen.
That's right. We're worth the wait.
Well, there's lots of it. Like, we're in spooky season.
Yes.
You know, it's October, our favorite month. It's my favorite month, and also it's like so exhausting. For me, like I have like 2 kids with birthdays, a niece with birthday. We have Halloween. We have my husband's birthday's on the 1st of November. So it's like Christmas. It's like Christmas. It's that busy. And there's like stuff going on. I want to do Harvest Festival things with my kids. And like there was one this weekend. And I was just like, I just couldn't do it. Like my back's been hurting. And I'm like, I can't. I'm not leaving the house.
Well, I feel like this is my busy season for photography too. So anytime I want to... Like, I want to do, oh, wait, no, I scheduled that. Oh, I can't. And, like, even there's stuff going on, and we were gone to Renee's house. I'm like, why does everything happen the same weekend? Come on. So, this week I'm going into spooky season, I was like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I thought, what is something that's super scary to me? And that is mass hysteria. Yes. Groupthink, mass hysteria, like, panic. Creeps me the F out. Like, I can't handle it. And what big thing happened in the 80s that was mass hysteria? Satanic Panic.
Oh, yeah. It's kind of happening now, Colleen.
Well, I'm going to talk about that.
Call it something else.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about that because it's continually, we think it ended, but it has not, and that's the scary part, is that it's not ended. It started back in the Salem, you think about the Salem witch trials. It's the same idea. It's like, if there's a problem or things are changing in society, we have to find a evil to blame it on, basically. Mm-hmm. So, in the early 80s, conspiracy theories about satanic cults and communities and mass child abuse spread throughout our country. Like, people were losing their shit about it.
I know, it's awful.
And that political pendulum that goes back and forth went from the more progressive 70s to the conservative Reagan era. So we're going more into conservative times. And there was a revival of fundamentalist and evangelical Christian conservative movement happening at the same time, which don't even get me started on that. And a lot of social change. We were seeing women working out of the home, which was not something that people liked. Not everyone. You're seeing a collapse of what they felt was the traditional family model, because woman stayed home, man worked, woman stayed in the kitchen, barefoot, taking care of the kids, while the man provided. And now, we got to a point where you can do that feasibly, for one, and two, women wanted to work. They wanted to get out of the house.
Yeah, things are, the whole, like, backbone of the country was changing.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of those blue-collar jobs where a man could get a job, or one, I'm saying man because traditionally it was a man, could go out and get a job at a factory with no education. He could go out and get a job at a factory and support his family with one income. Where a lot of those factory jobs went overseas because these owners were like, why
Greedy.
should we pay minimum wage to these people
when I can pay 10 cents in China.
Yeah.
Or wherever.
Right. China, India, Indonesia.
Yeah,
any of those places. You know, it's like, why wouldn't they? They're not getting penalized for it, so of course they're going to go overseas. And then a lot of these blue-collar jobs are now retail jobs, like working food service or working in retail. I mean, and they don't give the benefits like you don't
get 40 hours a week in retail. They try everything not to give you 40 hours a week.
Right, and they don't give you, because they don't want to give you benefits. And then they're giving you minimum wage, where a lot of the factory jobs were not minimum wage.
No.
They were unionized, and they had, like...
Right.
I mean, you can still find some around, but it's not like it was.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, you also saw increase in people in the LGBTQ community coming out of the closet, but you also saw more homophobia, and you saw a lot of spread of misinformation about AIDS and people that were gay that were not true, and it was terrible. There was an increase in sensationalized crime reporting in the media. The media was really big on sensationalizing everything at that time, and there was a big rise in the daytime talk show host Donahue, Sally Jesse Raphael, Geraldo. So
Ricky Lake.
All this stuff is happening, and media is being pushed in your face, and they want ratings, so they're going to push out the things that make people watch. So this created like a perfect storm for Satanic Panic, which many people, they trace the start of it. I mean, it kind of bubbled, in the 60s, 70s with Charles Manson, the Jonestown Kool-Aid drinking.
Yeah, but they weren't like Jonestown. That was Christian.
Right, but it was a cult. The cult piece,
that cult
talking
mentality.
about that cult mentality bubbled then. But then it really, with all this stuff changing and the conservative, fundamentalist, evangelical Christian movement that was really hitting hard. All the people on the TV, the Tammy Faye Bakers, the the other people that have for some reason, yes, all those people are on there yelling and hollering and telling you're going to hell if you don't do stuff right. So people trace back where it really started hitting hard with the Satanic Panic was a book written by it's called Michelle Remembers. And it was written by a Canadian psychologist, Lawrence Pesden, and co-authored by his former patient and then wife, Michelle Smith, which, that seems a little, not good to marry your patient. But whatever. As an adult, Michelle went through 600 hours of hypnosis under the care of Pesden to help her recall repressed memories of being in a satanic cult as a child. The book features stories on abuse, sacrifice, and demonic rituals.
Did you read this book?
No, I didn't read this book.
You don't want to read this book.
I'm not going to read the book.
No.
It's made, when it started getting closely looked at, however, there was no evidence to back up anything that she said. She said something about the cult was doing, in Victoria, Canada, they were in a cemetery, they were doing their rituals, and no one in that town ever said anything weird was happening in the 50s. Now, this is the 50s. If there are people doing cult rituals in a cemetery, people would be saying something, what's going on?
Because that's what they did. There
was nothing else to do.
Right.
They would be nosy.
Right.
So they would know.
They are looking out their windows. If they see a flicker light, they're got their binoculars out, or they're sneaking through the woods to see what you're doing. Yeah. Because the snoops are everywhere.
Gladys, next door, is looking out the window. Also, she said something about one of the priests that was in the cult had to cut his finger off for a ritual. And people are like, there was never any priest without a finger around here. No. So the things she said, no one would back up. Like, no one saw it. No one, it wasn't true. So regardless, that the book was basically debunked by lots of different people saying this isn't true. This book is pushed out there. The media went nuts with it and basically made Smith and Pesden credible because the media highlighted it, talked about because you know why? What ratings? They want ratings. So they did this, which basically made Pesden an expert on what was referred to as satanic ritual abuse, SRA, which was something that was said a lot in the 80s because they thought everything was happening. And it gets so ridiculous that I was angry reading this.
I know.
How angry it made me.
I'm glad that you covered this because I've listened to quite a few podcasts about this. And so, like, I would feel weird covering it because I have, like, influence from them.
Yeah.
But it's like you're listening to it and you're yelling. I'm, like, getting so angry because I'm like, this is the most ridiculous shit I've ever heard.
How
it's just
dumb.
so infuriating. It's infuriating.
It is. Some law enforcement and social workers and other authorities, judicial people used Michelle Remembers as a textbook during the 80s and early 90s on how to identify the SRA.
Oh,
so
my
I'll just go.
God.
The book made the idea that satanic activity was going on in their community even more plausible, and made the idea that there was satanic activity happening all over the place.
Yes.
And reports upon reports would follow for decades later about satanic ritual abuse.
Mm-hmm.
So it popularized the belief that there was a large satanic network working underground, taking over America from the inside. And people believed it. And if it just sounds like something maybe happening now, exactly, it is like something that's happening now. And I'm going to talk about that at the end of this, how it connects to QAnon. And how really...
Or, as I like to call it, QAnon-sense.
Yes. Friggin' ridiculous.
We're going to get 8 mail now.
Good, I hope we do. And people, again, they needed to find a bad, right? Social change that people, especially upper middle class conservative white people, didn't like the changes that were happening in society.
Mm-hmm.
The homosexuals were coming out. Oh
How
my God.
Dare they?
Women were working.
They were not having babies, Colleen.
They were probably on birth control.
Oh my God. Why
they were deciding when they started their own family or not have one at all.
How dare they?
How dare they?
What gave them the right to think like
I know.
that?
How could women think for themselves? I mean, goodness.
Their husbands are supposed to think for them, but these women don't all have husbands, Colleen. How can they, like...
Spinsters.
How can they, like...
function
in the world without a husband or a father to take care of them?
Ridiculous.
We're saying this ironically.
I hope you get the sarcasm.
Yes, can you hear? Hopefully you can hear the sarcasm.
I hope you can, because if you cannot, it was sarcasm. The conservative Christian evangelicals were really focusing in on that Satanism and how it was affecting our country. And they wanted to protect the people. They weren't at all profiting from people's fears. No, they wanted to protect the people. They weren't greedy and wanting more money and use something they saw out there that was causing fear among people and preying upon it and making it worse so they can get more money. No. They don't do that. Again, that was sarcasm.
I got it.
Many opportunists also use the fear-mongering and to benefit themselves, including the Pasden, who wrote the book Michelle Remembers. Mm-hmm. He, too, was like, oh, they think I'm an expert. Oh, well, yes, I know everything about this. I put someone under hypnosis, and they told me everything about that happened to them, so I'm an expert now, and everyone thought he was. Because he hypnotized someone, and they were able to remember things that happened.
I'm sure there was no influence going on.
None at all.
Part. Yeah.
And they got married, too, so that's whatever.
Ew.
Then there was Mike Warnick. I don't know if it's
Warnick. It's Warren.
With a K? Warnick?
Warnick.
I was right. Okay.
Let me see how you spell it.
It's Warnke.
Warnke?
I don't know if that's how you say it or not.
Warnke?
So he became popular in the Christian speaking circuit, which...
He's a big D-bag.
He is.
He is the worst.
He is.
He's horrible.
He published a book called The Satan Seller, and he wrote it because he said he was a former Satanist turned Christian, and he was involved in ritualistic drug abuse, orgies, and sacrifices, and he also recorded several Christian comedy albums. What?
Yeah.
How can you have a Christian comedy album, first of all?
They're comedic for people now to listen to because it's like...
are you kidding me?
Yes.
Yeah, so he said movies like The Exorcist were instrumental in drawing him into Satanism. And he's quoted saying, if the devil has a PR, it's the cinema. Those movies are doing it to it. All your children are become Satanists because they're watching those scary films. He said that every town is likely to have a satanic cult lying in wait to take over, I guess. I don't know. And he was another one that profited off people's fears. It came out that everything he said was a lie. He never was part of a satanic church. Formal or informal.
No, and it's like they tried to, like, the times when he said he was doing this shit, he was in the military.
Yeah.
It's like, you weren't even in the United States.
And he would try to also work off the fact that he was a veteran and he was, well, whatever, to get people's respect, right?
Right.
And he also found out that he had been charged with domestic abuse and tax fraud. So he was a big, fat, stupid, ugly liar who tried to preyed on people's fears and profited from it and lied up a storm. And what these people don't realize is what you're doing is causing danger and harm to other people. When we do this, we spread lies, and the fear-mongering causes bad things to happen to innocent people.
Well, he got famous. That's what he wanted anyway.
Oh, yeah.
I'm pretty sure. Like, most of these people, that's what they wanted was fame. They're like, I'm going to make up a bunch of shit to spur on my narrative.
So people will want to come to me and listen to me, and I know everything.
And I'll be the expert, and I'll be this smart person, even though he's not smart.
No, he's an idiot.
Yeah, he is no education.
Like, if you're going to lie about things you did, make sure you were in the country when you say you did them.
Yeah,
like,
you were overseas, dude. Like, you're saying this shit if this shit happened overseas, then it's like something from over there, not from here.
Right. And, even though he, was a fraud.
We're going to get worked up.
I know.
I'm already worked up.
What he said and did helped spread the panic amongst people. So even though he was, it was like, it didn't matter if things were proved wrong. It was already out there. And it would be like the Southwest would be all entrenched in it. And then it would move, then that would calm down. And then the Northeast would hit the Northeast, and then everyone up there, then they go to the Southeast. You know what I mean? It moved around the country because where the panic hit, because it depended on when you got the information, because it wasn't like the internet, we didn't have that in the 80s.
Yeah. It's like, it wasn't just lying. Like, this narrative put people in jail that didn't need to be in jail.
Oh, yeah.
Because of this nonsense horse shit.
I'm going to talk about that. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So society now has this book, Michelle Remembers, and this guy going out there talking about everything. And it's really stirring up a panic in a lot of parents, and a lot of the parents that panic are just worried about their kids. People started really scrutinizing all parts of American life for devil worshipping. So metal music, obviously, was a perfect target. Child characters in the 80s got kind of pegged as satanic or devil imagery.
Like what?
Well, I'm going to tell you. And corporations are among some that were attacked during this time. And it came like a modern day witch hunt. Like they were like really reading into every little thing to see if it had connections to the devil.
You know what? We live in America. We have a constitution that gives people religious freedoms.
Right.
And even if you don't like their religion, if they're not hurting other people, that's why they're like, well, they're hurting people.
That's why they said that.
Right. Yeah. But they're not. You can't prove it. And they have the right to worship the way they want, even if you don't like it.
Exactly. Procter & Gamble was under the eye of the public when rumor was spread that they supported the Satanic Church. Their original logo, which was designed in the 1800s, they've had it for a long time, had a man in a crescent moon facing 13 stars. The 13 stars represented 13 colonies at the time.
Yes.
But they said the 13 stars and the moon represented the devil. The devil!
You have to say it like Waterboy.
Devil. Devil! They went on basically a 2-decade campaign to try to clear their name. They filed a lawsuit. And the most recent thing that they won was in 2007. So since the 80s, they've been like suing people for saying that they were like satanic child abusers.
Procter & Gamble?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
And they actually changed their logo because they're just like, we don't want to deal with it. Like, okay, we'll change our logo. We're not child condone satanic child abuse. McDonald's also came under attack. They received letters from customers asking why the owner, I think his name's
Cook?
No, it's Ray Kroc. Oh, sorry, it wasn't Cock. There was an R. I just didn't put it in. I like it better when it's Cock.
Ray Cock.
Ray Cock.
Ray Crotch.
Ray Crotch. So,
we're punchy today.
McDonald's, they received letters from customers asking why their owner, Kroc, not Cock, supported the Satanic Church. Hundreds and hundreds of letters. The rumor started when a parishioner in the Kenmore Church of God in Ohio went to the Reverend of the church, John McFarland, which I was like, I wonder if it's related to McFarland and stuff. Yeah, stuff. Saying she saw the owner, Kroc, on Phil Donahue, and he said he donated 20% of the profits to the Church of Satan. She was very concerned about this because people ate there in her church. He never saw the episode. He just took her word for it. So he decided to share the news in the church newsletter. Soon the word spread to other churches, shared in their parishioners, and it spread on and on like the telephone game. Became 50% of the profits were being shared. Now, why would any greedy son of a bitch like McDonald's Corporation give anyone 50% of their profits? There should tell you.
They would.
Right. I mean, I don't love McDonald's. They're greedy. I don't care if they're worshiping Satan. They're not killing children. Well, they are killing children away.
They are.
Their food.
With the diabetes.
Well, anyway.
I will say, though, that being an iced tea gal, I like a nice unsweetened iced tea, but I don't like that fountain shit that you get. I want the real kind. McDonald's has real brewed iced tea, and it's $1 for a large, and it's not sweetened, and I can get 15 lemons in there if I want.
It was proven that, although Kroc was on Donahue, he never said anything about the church. Now, who would go on there during the Satanic Panic and say, I love the Church of Satan? And he's greedy. He's not going to do that. If he was doing that, he wouldn't say it.
He's a businessman, and he's a $1 billion businessman.
Yeah, he's not
and
stupid.
He has not made $1 billion for doing shit like that.
No.
He knows better.
Reverend McFarland realizes that the woman was incorrect and was like, well, I better write a little retraction about this in my newsletter. But no one cared about his retraction, and it didn't spread anywhere. And McDonald's, I remember something about the Golden Arches when I was a kid. I can't remember the specifics, but I remember it was like something evil. I'm sure the rumors just spread and different things got made up. But I remember hearing something about it.
They're picking on the Golden Arches when they have a horrifying clown as their mascot.
Exactly.
With red mouth.
I mean, that right there that would scare me more than,
It's terrifying.
It's more scary than
you go in there and there's a statue.
I know.
And he hovers.
Or the one where he's sitting and you sit next to him and his arms are out.
No, at the one on State Street, when I worked there, I think it was State Street, one of the ones in town before they redid it, there was a statue of Ronald McDonald, and it was hovering over one of the tables that backs at the chair. So you're eating, and there's this statue glaring at you, and it's like, I can't eat here. He's like over my head staring at me, and he's gonna kill me.
That's horrible.
It's terrifying. That's terrifying.
It is.
That's why people should be mad at McDonald's.
Yeah. Ronald is scary.
Terribly scary.
Lovable children's characters were attacked, like Thundercats. They said they had Eastern mythological mystic things in them.
They're cool. That's what makes them cool, Colleen.
He-Man and the Skeleton Castle toy, especially. Or Snake Mountain toy, because it had a microphone that was attached to it, and the microphone made your voice deeper. Therefore, you're turning your children evil.
Because that's what deep voices means you're evil. So, you know.
Yeah. Even our precious Rainbow Bright.
The bad guy was a Skeletor. Was the bad guy.
Yeah, well, that didn't matter. Our precious Rainbow Bright. They said that the little star on her cheek, her beauty mark star, was a pentagram. And not to trust precious Rainbow Bright. So they're really just reading into everything.
It's really not any different now, Colleen.
I know.
It really is. It's the same. It is the same now.
I think that's what makes me mad, is the more I read, the more I'm like, oh my God, we haven't changed a bit. We haven't changed, even back in really, if you think about Salem, the witch trials, the same thing. We're still doing that shit.
Some asshole woman posted on Facebook to not watch the new Hocus Pocus 2.
Oh, because
the incantations are going in your home, and who knows what it's going to bring into your house.
And part of me is like,
are you freaking serious?
Now, part of me is like, is that a joke? Like, that's a joke, right?
I don't think it probably...
We're making fun of people that say stuff like that, right? That didn't really happen.
I think it really happened, Kelly.
And
if it didn't happen, then somebody now read that and it's like, oh my God,
well,
they're right.
People believe it. That's the thing. That's the problem. Someone says something and you believe it. Why do you believe everyone? When it sounds ridiculous, don't believe it.
This rando person on Facebook that has no degree and just spewing out shit that doesn't make any sense. You believe every word they say. Yeah. Don't do it.
And what they heard was probably from 7 other people who said it differently, and it telephone game to them something different than what it was originally. So rock bands, obviously, metal bands became a target. I mean, that's just...
I mean Ozzy did bite heads off.
He did not an accident. No, that wasn't on purpose.
He found a dead bat.
No.
And he brought it on stage and he bit his head off.
That's not what happened. Margaret. Someone threw a bat onto the stage. Right. He thought it was fake, and he was like, and then it was real.
Gross.
So he didn't...
It's amazing he didn't get rabies.
I mean, he did probably worse things to himself.
He snorted ants. Yeah. That was in the memoir.
Yeah. So anyway, that was in the Metallica thing. They talked about that. So, I mean, their imagery, obviously, but one of the big things was the backmasking was when they would put subliminal messages in their music about the devil when it was played backwards.
Anything sounds like the devil when you play it backwards. You could take a record of people singing at church and play it backwards, and it sounds like evil shit, because it's nonsense. Yeah.
Led Zeppelin, Rolling Stones, Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, Ozzy, just to name a few, were all under scrutiny from all these crazy people about Satanic Panic.
Because when people buy records, they're buying them so they can play them backwards. Because that's what people do. Right?
Right. There was even some evangelicals that said if you played Mr. Ed song, which was in the 60s, like they were going backwards, trying to find stuff even then, Mr. Ed, the horse.
He is a talking horse.
That right there makes me think, but not the song. If you played that backwards, it said the source of Satan, or the other one thought it said songs for Satan. But then they were like, well, maybe they didn't do that on purpose. Oh, really? You don't think they did? It's virtually impossible to write lyrics that sound good going forward and backwards. Like, they don't, that makes sense.
That's not how language works.
So basically when people play an album backwards, obviously it sounds creepy. We know it sounds creepy. But it's your brain trying to make sense of the gibberish it's hearing. So you will hear things that you want to hear. So it sounds creepy, so you might start hearing creepy things. But it's not happening.
What? I have a funny story that links to that a little bit. In college, because this was 95, so it's like the dawn of computer. Like, this is when people are starting to have home PCs, you know, right around then. Chat rooms are big. I didn't have an email address because that kind of was like after that. But my friend had this like fancy computer, and you could record on it and then play things backwards. So what we would do is we would write out sentences and then read them backwards. And then play it backwards. So we were talking, we all sounded like we were from, like, Russia.
That's funny.
Like, it was fun. Yeah.
Well, a lot of people think that it's Aleister Crowley's fault that people
We talked about him before.
I know.
He was a big douchebag.
Because he said that you could train your brain to think backwards and talk, you could train yourself to talk backwards. So it was kind of his influence in that thought process of, they think maybe that had some influence on it because he was part of the occult.
He was a douchebag. Yes.
He was an idiot. We don't like him. So the book was published in 1982 called Mazes and Monsters, which there was a movie that came out the same year. And guess who played the main character?
I think I know. Just Ruben has it. I'm pretty sure.
Tom Hanks.
That's right.
Tom Hanks. So it was in 82. It was a made-for-TV movie. It was made off the book. But the book was inspired by the case of Jane Egbert. And he was a 16-year-old college student. He was very, very, very smart. James. He was very smart, and he disappears in Michigan State University in the late 70s. And when he came up missing, when the police were interviewing friends, they had mentioned that he liked Dungeons and Dragons, and there was like some kind of like underground like sewage, maybe not sewage, but underground tunnels that they would go down and play in. Of course, they focused on that for some reason. And then when it came about that he committed suicide, which is very sad, but he committed suicide because he was 16-year-old, very intelligent, had all this pressure on him, and he couldn't handle it. A lot of people put the blame on Dungeons and Dragons. He was too wrapped up in the role play. So the book about it, Mazes and Monsters, is based on that story, that real life thing that happened. Like, they took privileges with it.
Which they're known to do.
Yes. So, when the book came out, and the made-for-TV movie came out, it brought back up and it's happening during Satanic Panic, so it was a perfect time to do these things, right? It put D&D back in the crosshairs, in the idea that Dungeons and Dragons is a gateway to devil worshipping, and that's really what people thought. There was a group formed called BADD, B-A-D-D. You can never guess what it stands for. Bothered about Dungeons and Dragons. Well, aren't you a bunch of badasses going after Dungeons and Dragons? I'm bothered about Dungeons and Dragons. I'm sorry. If you're trying to go after something, maybe make your name a little more threatening. Right? And they firmly believed that Dungeons and Dragons was all about magic and the occult, and it was evil, and they're going to be devil worshippers.
I mean, look at Strange...
I was just going to say
Stranger Things. Like, that's why all that bad shit happened, is because those kids were playing Dungeons.
Yeah. So, that's the thing with this newest... If you haven't watched the newest season of Stranger Things, sorry, spoiler alert, but they took the Satanic Panic stuff was showed during the whole season with Eddie, because he listened to metal music. He liked Dungeons and Dragons. Anything bad that happened had to be him. He was a troubled kid. Like, they like to do that. And I'm going to talk more about that, too, about how it happened to other people.
Well, my husband was big Dungeons and Dragons when he was a kid, and he has all the books. I mean, he has like hundreds of dollars worth of books of Dungeons and Dragons, and like we haven't done it with the little kids we have now, but because we have a 10-year gap. Jackson, when he was little, like we were playing that with him all the time, and we had more fun building characters, like with rolling dice and stuff like that. But I mean, that is the best thing to do for your kid, to like enrich their imagination, because you're playing it, and it's basically like there's a dungeon master,
which is just funny.
It's just funny to say. And they kind of control the game, but like it's so much. You have to think.
Oh, it's like, fun.
It's fun, and you have to think about things, and it's like geniuses play Dungeons and
Dragons.
Dragons.
Well, it's strategy, and it is. Yeah. So, fans of D&D, metalheads, punk rock kids, anyone in any form of alt lifestyle, let's say, were basically demonized during this time. Like, they were devil worshippers, the way they dressed, they nitpicked everything about them. Even the nerds playing D&D, and I can say that because I played D&D with you, so I can say nerds because I was one of them, and it's not evil.
It's fun.
It's fun.
Join the dark side.
Yeah.
And play D&D.
In 1983, one of the biggest things happened during the peak, when things started really bubbling. This really pushed it over the edge. A woman in Manhattan Beach, California, accused employees at her son's daycare of abuse. This would become the largest, longest, most expensive trial California history. It was like $15 million trial. When the information was taken to police sent letters to over 200 families in the daycare. Sent letters to the families saying, the chief, explaining the alleged sexual crimes that happened to the children to these parents, and asked the parents to question their children about it if they saw it. So he wanted the parents to question their children about sexual crimes happening.
And explain to them what the sexual crime was. It's like, if you're going to tell, did you see, and explain something, and the kid goes, yeah, I saw that, and they'll repeat it back to you, doesn't mean they saw it, it means they know how to repeat what you say.
And let me tell you, I have worked with preschoolers, and this was a preschool environment, for 17 years.
Almost 2 decades, Colleen.
Yeah, I'm older than shit. And I will tell you right now, they will say yes to anything. You ask them a question, they think you want to hear yes. And they will say, yep. Yep. Do you know what that is? Yep. What is it? And they'll just stare at you. They don't know. They just say yes because they think you want to hear it.
Yeah, they're like 3-year-olds that want to please you.
Yeah.
Because they want you to give them cookies. So they're going to
They want you to be happy. Kids want to make you happy. And if they think that's going to make you happy, they're going to go along with what you say. And if you're excited about it, they're excited. And if you're sad about it, they're sad because they go off of what you're doing. So if their parents are freaking out, asking them stuff, they're going to freak out too. It's just how it works.
And especially if you ask them something and they say no, and then you keep asking them, eventually
they're
going to say yes because they think that's what you want to hear.
Exactly. So this didn't cause panic amongst these poor families, though. Imagine getting a letter in the mail.
Oh my
God. A letter
God.
in the mail saying your child could have been sexually molested or abused in this school. What the fuck? Like, I would lose my mind.
I would lose my mind with the police officers. It's like, why would you send that to me in a letter? You
and we want you to question your kids, so they're not going to, like, that's coercion. Like, no. So they brought in untrained social workers who never have dealt with satanic anything before to question the children for hours. And the questions were very leading. It was said that the children spoke of a labyrinth of tunnels under the building where they were led to rooms and had to have naked pictures taken. They also said that infants were sacrificed.
Yeah, because none of the parents of the infants realized, because,
didn't notice that their infants were gone. That the children were flushed down the toilet.
Because they fit down the toilet. That makes total sense, Colleen.
There was a goat man. And that one of their teachers, Mr. Ray, turns into a witch and flies around. Now, I'm going to tell you a story. When I was teaching in a classroom with 3-year-olds, our kitchen guy who cooked for us was in the kitchen. We'll call him Steve. That's not his name. I'm just protecting the rights of the innocent people here. Steve comes in, and they were doing fun things in the kitchen where it was like summer and winter. We had like a barbecue, like a cookout kind of thing in the kitchen, and they brought the kids, and the kitchen staff wore like shorts and t-shirts and a Hawaiian thing that day to bring the food to us, just to make it fun, right? So Steve comes in our classroom, and he's wearing shorts, and he's wearing a t-shirt, and he's wearing like a Hawaiian lei, and he's brought us hamburgers. And it was like, I was like, oh my goodness, look at Mr. Steve doesn't even have pants on today. It's so cold. This little girl went home and said to her mom, Mr. Steve didn't wear pants. And she was like, what? Mr. Steve in the kitchen didn't wear pants. He didn't have his pants on. The mother called me in a panic thinking she was alone in the kitchen with Mr. Steve and he didn't have pants on.
But it's not really that funny.
And when she told me, I started laughing because I knew what really happened. And she was like, I knew I had it, but I was freaking out. My husband said, no, call and talk to her teacher. I'm sure there's an explanation. And I had to tell Mr. Steve about it. I'm like, so you could say, oh, look at Mr. Ray flying around like a witch today. Maybe he had the broom or something. It doesn't matter. You say things to kids and they repeat them in a way that could be totally different than what they heard. So poor Mr. Steve almost got arrested because I said he didn't have pants on that day.
Well, he technically didn't. He had short pants.
Short pants.
But,
short,
yes.
Depending on how you say things.
Kids.
So, so it didn't matter that these claims were like ridiculous. It didn't matter at all because it went to trial in 1986
with a goat man
and
flying around in the broom.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was no physical evidence. There never were tunnels. They looked for tunnels. There were no tunnels under the building. There was nothing. And this trial wouldn't end for years. Years, Margaret. It went on for 6 years.
Well, Colleen, it's because the tunnels are hidden with the magic.
Oh, it must be.
Because they can fly and there's a goat man.
Yeah.
So obviously there's magic there, and that's why they couldn't find the tunnel.
They ended up dropping it 6 years in because there was no physical evidence, no evidence of anything. The woman who owned it, her son worked there, her daughter worked there, and her mother worked there. The son and daughter ended up in jail for a lot of the time, and they end up clearing their name and letting them go. But that ruined their lives.
Yes, and their names weren't cleared.
No.
You know what I mean?
People, not in the public eye.
Not in that town, especially.
No.
Nobody was gonna...
And they ended up tearing the building down in the 1990. But in 2005, the LA Times interviewed one of the children that were in there, who's now an adult, obviously. And he said, I lied. They kept asking me the same question over and over, and I wanted to leave, and they wouldn't let me leave, so I finally told them what I thought they wanted to hear. And his siblings were there, and he just wanted them to be safe, and he didn't want them to have to go through that. So he just said, yeah, that's what happened. He's like, none of that happened. I just didn't want to sit in this room anymore. They kept me in for a long time. And many other people claimed the same thing. Like, I lied because they wouldn't let us leave. And they were like 3 and 4-year-olds.
Right.
They're going to say whatever they think the adult wants them to say because they think that's what you're supposed to do.
But a lot of times with kids like that, they're that age. If you have a parent telling you, well, this happened to you.
Oh, yeah, you're going to believe your parent.
And then it's going to become a memory, even though it
never
never happened.
Exactly.
But you're adamantly going to remember it happening, even though it didn't.
Yeah. You're forming thoughts that weren't there. And you would think this would be a cut and dry. After all that happened, there's no proof, blah, 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 mass hysteria, that this isn't going to happen again. We've learned our lesson that this isn't happening. Yeah. Oh, no. No, but just continued. The public was already afraid, and their fears were forcing law enforcement and social workers and others to do something. Like, the fear was out there. Like, you have to stop this. So pamphlets were made based on hearsay. They did a lot with pamphlets in the 80s. A lot of passing of information via pamphlet. Yeah. It was a big deal.
Propaganda,
yeah. And that stuff made the news. And social workers and law enforcement started going to seminars held. There were seminars for law enforcement and people how to identify satanic ritual abuse.
Yeah.
This case also led to more allegations around the country. In 1985, 77 cases of satanic child abuse were filed in Bakersfield, California alone. LA County had 3 satanic ritual cases waiting to go to trial. Hundreds have alleged that thousands of offenders were abusing and murdering hundreds of thousands of people as part of a satanic cult, yet there was still no evidence, but people kept believing it was happening. In 1984, a case in Massachusetts and another child care center got accused of this. In 85, a case in County Woke, Florida, there was cases for daycare workers, and the satanic ritual abuse was popping up all over the country. The specifics of the cases were a little different, but what it all boiled down to was that they were a satanic cult. Right. And people were thinking the reason why this happened is because women were in the workforce now, so looking for good daycare wasn't a thing in the public eye, and that's why these daycare workers they had to be evil because they were part. I don't understand it. But it kind of shows how mass panic, when you let mass panic precedent evidence and scientific methodologies, right? You're going to see shit happen that isn't good. Right. As we see now today. Yes. We let mass hysteria take over and not listen to the facts and evidence. Bad shit happens. And these cases all show that. These people went to trial. Some people are in jail to this day that did nothing. In May 1985, 2020 did a segment called The Devil Worshippers.
Just what we needed.
I know. The host, Hugh Downs, started the segment with the words, perverse, hideous acts that defy belief, murders, slaughter of children and animals. So that just sets the tone.
You think?
Right?
Wow.
So they had 33 experts. 2 of the experts, guess who they were?
Mike Warnke?
Yeah. And Lawrence Pasden.
Of course.
The other asshole. And they're really focusing on the teenage Satanist. How evil Satanism was and all these teenagers were going to kill us all. Pasden said that the reason why there's not evidence is because they're really good at covering their tracks.
Because they're too freaking lazy. They're not even gonna clean their bedrooms. Like, they're
I know.
Get together.
Yeah.
Like, no,
they barely shower.
They don't want to leave mine don't want to leave the house.
Right.
Like, to get him, like, I looked at Life 360 and it was like, he's been at home since October 1st. And I'm like, Jackson, I think you need to leave the house for a little while because you haven't left for 2 weeks. You know, it's like, get your ass up.
Right. So, but they're really good at covering their tracks.
Yeah.
They said that when they kill people, because they do human sacrifice, and baby mutilations, they like that. They cremate them, and then they spread the ashes about with other Satanists, and they use them in their rituals.
Do they not understand how hard it is to cremate a body, and how hot the temperature has to be?
He's a doctor, you would think.
That doesn't fit his narrative.
No. So. Well, he can't sell more books if you sound like you're a hoke. Yeah. Is that his word? Hoke? Are you a hoke? What's it called when you're a hack? When you're a hack! That's the word. Like a hoke? Hoax? A hoax and a hack.
You blended them together. A hoke.
This segment alleged that satanic rituals were running rampant through the United States, citing books like Anton LaVey's Satanic Bible, saying heavy metal music and like Iron Maiden, Ozzy albums with their satanic imagery, and they said that Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven, right? You like their song? Yeah, mm-hmm. Stairway to Heaven. Yep. That played backwards says Sweet Satan. So.
Because that's what kids did with their records.
They played them backwards. And that Led Zeppelin's real evil. Real evil band.
I would agree with that.
Tom Jarrell, the 2020 correspondent who did the piece, said, "Today we find Satan alive and thriving, or at least plenty of people believe he is. His followers are extremely secretive and found in all walks of life." And he was like, saying it as a fact that this is all happening. Then at the end of the report, he says, "Until evidence is provided that link between the crimes and satanic cults will remain speculative."
It's funny. There were more people who believed that Satan was alive and well than there were people that actually worshiped Satan.
Yes!
Like, there were probably 15 times as many that thought he was alive and well than there were actually people that actually worshipped him.
So the thing is, 2020 put all these ideas out in people's heads, had those two assholes that spread lies on their show. And at the end, we're like, well, we don't really have proof of this, but it doesn't matter now.
Just
it doesn't
take
matter.
My word for it.
We speculate that this is what it is. But at this point, after you made it talk factual, the whole thing, that one last sentence that you said, doesn't matter. Right. People, it's already in their head.
And you're on TV, primetime TV.
Yeah, 2020. That was like what you watch to get your info.
That's what I watch when I want to watch true crime shows.
Right? In 1984, 3 members of the Maralt family in Massachusetts were convicted of false child molestation charges, following yet another pattern of false memory coercion from children. 2 of the defendants spent 10 and 20 years in prison before being paroled in 1999 and 2004. The 3rd defendant died of cancer in prison before her conviction could be overturned.
Oh my God, that's sickening.
She was exonerated in 1998, the year after she died.
They should sue those so-called specialists that put them there because it's their fault.
This is where I get real pissed off. And you're going to know why the second I say the name. In 1985, Geraldo Rivera did an NBC special called Devil Worshipping, Exposing Satan's Underground. Millions of people tuned into it. And it probably did the most to really spread mass hysteria.
Oh,
because everyone loved that Geraldo. He's horrible!
He is.
Horrible. Now, he said on his special, 1 million Satanists were lurking in communities across our country to an audience of about 20 million people watching. So he said that this, as a fact, there's 1 million of them out there. Fear-mongering at its finest, as Geraldo likes to do. He had priests and cops and Satanists and concerned parents on. Ozzy even was on it. And he actually was speaking, like, you can see them in the interview, like, talking, and he was, like, actually the clearest Ozzy's ever seemed his whole life.
Well, but he did a lot of drugs.
But he was doing good in this interview.
Well, because he said this is before the drugs affected his brain.
I don't know about that. He was pretty bad before that. But he said that, he felt like he was being persecuted by everyone. He's like, I'm being blamed for things that have nothing to do with me. I have no connection to these people. The things that are happening to people, nothing in my records, like, he just felt persecuted.
He should have. They were persecuting him.
Yeah. He also had parents from the McMartin case, which was the preschool case of the flying teachers on it. And the case was going on. Like, this was while the trial was happening. Because the trial happened
the flying girl on a broom came from Wizard of Oz, because these kids watch Wizard of Oz on TV.
During this show, showed pictures of corpses that were kind of blurred out a bit to be on TV. And he made sure to tell families they shouldn't let their children watch. Because what they're going to see is graphic. Fear-mongerer. Like, makes me so mad. The sensationalization of it makes me sick. And the fear-mongering caused panic throughout households. And actually, this is what makes it dangerous for people to live. Because you are just making people so afraid that they are going to act out emotionally. And emotionally acting out is never a good thing.
Never.
Like I am right now.
I am too.
I have a heart attack.
I'm amped up. I'm angry.
He predicted that in 18 months, teenagers' involvement in Satanism would be more than the epidemic of drugs the decade earlier. These kids are going into the heart of darkness, he said. He had Lauren Stratford, was her pen name, and I didn't put down her real name because I don't care about her. She published a book called Satan's Underground, which is where he got part of his title from. This book was proven to be lies. It was kind of a copycat of Michelle Remembers, and she wanted to be famous from it. She was one of his experts, quote unquote. She claimed that she was a satanic breeder forced to have babies for the cult. And when people went and asked her family, no one remembered her ever being pregnant during the time that she said she was pregnant. She had like 4 babies, and then like, no,
she probably had regressive, like memory hypnosis, and some idiot implanted that memory into her brain.
It seemed like the more unbelievable it was, the more people believed it. And mass hysteria, and that's fucking scary.
It is. That's really the scariest part.
Yeah, that's the scariest part.
I'm not scared of Satanists. I'm scared of all these assholes that believe that this is real.
Satanism doesn't have, no satanic church has anything in its, whatever they have, their rules or whatever, about human sacrifice, about ritualistic torture, about anything. It's not part of their religion.
It's all about jizz.
Yeah, I mean, whatever.
Animals, they didn't.
No one's hurting, and I think their whole thing is not to hurt other people. I think that's a moral of their thing.
They like to jack off.
Well, I don't think all of them do, but I think
it's like a magic. I guess men all think all that. All men think that that's.
Well,
magic.
that's true. That's true.
It's not.
No. Daytime talk show also was obviously, and Geraldo had his own show at the time. Listen to the titles of his shows he had. Satanic Breeders, Babies for Sacrifice. That was in 88.
So there's no record of these babies because they were all sacrificed.
Yeah. Satanic Black Market, Sex Slaves, Pornos and Drugs. That was in 89. Investigating Multiple Personalities. Did the Devil Make Them Do It? That was 90. Sally Jesse Raphael also had Baby Breeders in 89 and Devil Babies in 91.
Nice.
Oprah had shows throughout 80 and 89 on survivors of Satanism. Here's the thing, many of the survivors of Satanism, the ones that came out and talked, had multiple personality disorder. So here's the thing, did the trauma create it, or was the claims manifested from the disorder?
Right.
So, and a lot of times people that had mental health issues or anything were considered, or were troubled, as people would say, were considered Satanists because they
were thrown in asylums.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
Yeah, they were like possessed.
Right.
In 1992, finally, the Justice Department thoroughly debunked the myth of satanic rituals and abuse cults. But even though the satanic motivation of child abuse rituals had pretty much died out in the mid-90s, law enforcement continues to see Satan as a threat.
Especially, I hate to say it, southern states. It was the Bible Belt area was really into it.
In 1994, and you can see this video, and you gotta watch this video. It's called The Law Enforcement's Guide to Satanic Cults, and it's another former Satanist turned Christian walking around trying to interpret Greek graffiti and tell you where all this stuff is. It is a joke. He has a mullet of all mullets, and he's wearing like all black and a suit coat, and he's walking around saying, "Oh, you see this here? This is how they talk to each other." And I thought it's like a joke. It's a joke.
But the guy's freaking serious.
But he was serious.
Yes.
Francis, and his wife, Ann Keller, ran a daycare in Oak Hill, Austin, Texas. They were sentenced to 48 years in prison for dismembering infants, abusing children, and making children drink Kool-Aid with blood. They were convicted on crimes they didn't commit based solely on testimony of coerced children and circumstantial physical evidence and testimony by the ER doctor, Wow, who had treated one of the children in question. Later, he retracted his testimony and they were released in 2013. So what is that? 20 years served?
That is disgusting. That is disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
I want to puke. That just makes me...
I can't. It's sick.
It's like they dismembered babies. What baby? I don't know.
Yeah. Like, where's the evidence? What is the baby missing? Who is the parent?
Just because someone said it. Like, yeah. It's like...
Modern day witch hunt.
There's no proof. There's no evidence of a dead body. There's no body parts. There's no blood. There's nothing. Just somebody said, "Oh, I saw him dismember a baby," and they're in jail for 48 years. Yep. That is insanity.
In North Carolina, there's an inmate named Patrick Figured. He's 72. He's still serving time for a 1992 conviction due to coerced allegations of ritualistic abuse. I believe he was a bus driver. Joseph Allen, age 63, has been serving time in Ohio State since 94. For a highly bizarre case in which he was convicted of ritualistic child abuse along with another woman, even though the two had never even met each other. They didn't even know who each other were. She actually was later exonerated, but he's still in jail.
Ugh.
In 1993, and this is the most notorious case.
Yes, I know what you're talking about.
Damien, Jesse, and Jason, the West Memphis 3 of West Memphis, Arkansas, were accused and convicted of horrible sexual assault and murder of 3 young boys. When they were arrested, it was based on hearsay that they were Satanists and the way they dressed and their gothic lifestyle, that they had some interest in the occult. Much of the trial was around their interest in the occult, and it mentioned many times that they listened to heavy metal music, like they were troubled.
They were all black. Yeah. They showed the t-shirts that they had at home, and it's like, what?
They were convicted with no physical evidence.
They were convicted with junk science. That wasn't even, I'm using science. I have quotation fingers when I say science, because it wasn't even real science. That trial is one of the most upsetting things to learn about. And you hear all this stuff, and I knew about the West Memphis Free. Because in 2011 they were freed. If you didn't know that, their new DNA showed up that showed that they have no connection to the murders. Yes, but they're still convicted of it. They're out. But they're still technically guilty.
Guilty
of it. And they won't test the DNA.
So frustrating.
Yeah.
And then I didn't know anything, though, about these two. The guy who's 72, who's been in jail since 92, and the guy who's 63 that are in jail for just because someone said they did something. Like, that's not how that works.
And it's like, a lot of times they can't get appeals because the judge that put them there is the same judge now for 20 years. Yeah, they're trying to get an appeal from. Mm-hmm. And, like, it's the same people that have the same beliefs, and
or they just don't want to look bad.
And, they don't want to admit that they did something wrong, because if you admit that he shouldn't be in there, then when he gets out, he's going to sue the city. And you can't have that.
Oh, and the ones that were in there for, like, 20 years, they did sue. I think they got, like, $19 million or something.
They should. They should have got more than that.
Oh, yeah, they should. Rip apart the whole place.
They should have. What they should have done is taken those assholes that put them in there, and they should go to jail.
I know. In 1995...
I'm passionate about that.
Yeah. In 1995, Geraldo Rivera publicly finally apologized. He said, "I am convinced I was terribly wrong, and many innocent people were convicted and went to prison as a result. Use your fucking investigative journalism thing that you're so proud of and get these people out of jail then. You fucker."
Isn't he the same guy who told people if they could hold their breath for 10 seconds, they didn't have COVID?
And wasn't he the same man who got kicked out, like, the U.S. Army, like, the soldiers, like, he was telling where they were located. And they kicked him out of, like, Iran or Iraq or something.
Yes.
Because he was showing where they were on a map. He was drawing a map in the sand of where the troops were located. Like, you stupid idiot.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. He just makes me... But this has to be one of the worst things, too, because, like, you went on there and spoke fact about things that weren't factual. And people believed you.
And they still believe him.
They still...
I don't think...
How does he have any credibility? He's on Fox News, though, so there you go.
Exactly, Kelly. He's not on, like, real news. He's on...
Yeah. Opinion-based.
He's on an alternative programming.
During Satanic Panic, over 200 people were arrested for crimes. Dozens were convicted. Some were freed after years of in prison, and some are still there. A lot of people have gone back through and reviewed the cases of the SRA, the Satanic Ritual. And it showed that much of the testimony was obtained through coercion, suggestive techniques by untrained social workers, despite the evidence to corroborate claims it was believed. And the media would just fuel the flames because they wanted ratings. So they would talk about the things they knew people would watch.
Right.
And because of this, it made normal groups of people who probably could have been rational at one point buy into it, and then they were able to profit from their fears. And it's sickening and gross, and there was always an agenda behind it. For one, it was, those conservative evangelicals were really trying to get people to come to their churches. They wanted to make money. They wanted to get the people in power that they wanted in power, the conservatives, and it was sickening.
I agree.
And, we talked about how it's happening now. If you think about today, how like back in the 80s, it was like pamphlets and news stations, but news now is 24 hours a day. You can watch the news anytime, any place, on your phone. It's everywhere. You have access to it all the time.
And there's news stations that are geared towards your political beliefs.
Right.
So they're only showing you things that you're gonna, like, oh yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
They're not gonna say anything. I want news that's not biased.
Right, and it's
hard to find.
You have to like watch both and try to figure it. I don't know how. It's really difficult, but
you have to watch the BBC count.
But and also social media. Fucking people share, like you said, some idiot that you went to high school with. Not anyone I went to high school with. I'm not talking about you people. You're probably all smart. I don't know. No, you're not. Some of you weren't. But some idiot you went to high school with, it says that, you know, this pizzeria was sex trafficking kids in their basement, and you believe them. But when someone says, no, there's not a basement in here, let me show you, we don't even have a basement, you don't believe them because the idiot you went to school with said that there was. Like, that's what happened to Pizzagate. The Pizzagate thing there was not a basement in that place. They said there was children in the basement. And there's no basement. So, like, if you can't get the story right, don't say it.
And a lot of it is, like, they made his pizza wrong, or his pizza was late, or he thought he got overcharged for some shit. So he made something up and everybody believed. And that's really what it is.
Yeah.
Some asshole who has a grudge and too much time on his hands is going to make shit up because people do that. And you're going to believe it, and it's going to get shared 50 million times because it's a terrible story.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, it's awful. I'm going to share. It's like, not true. It's not true.
Well, and then, you know, QAnon was running with that story, with child trafficking, and then Democrats engaged in ritual Satanism and child sex abuse, and high-profile political people and celebrities and world leaders are part of pedo rings, and Donald Trump was the savior. He was going to take it all down. People are saying that Tom frickin' Hanks was a pedophile and he drank the blood of children. Tom Hanks is a treasure.
He is.
He is not sucking the blood out of babies. Okay? He's not.
He's not. I will fight anybody who says mean things about Tom Hanks.
I know. But the thing is, stuff like this, it's like, look over here, look over here, look over here. Playing with this hand, right? And then the left hand's or right hand's over here doing something bad.
Yes.
So they're like
probably doing what they're accusing the other person of doing.
And really, even with the Satanic Panic in the 80s, it was the same thing. There was an agenda being pushed during that. It was conservative Christian agenda was being pushed and scaring people to try to get the country back to the way they wanted it, and it wasn't going to happen.
Well, the reason why you're out of a job and you're at home and you have no money, it's because
of Satan.
It's because the women are working. And the homosexuals are all over the place trying to
give you AIDS.
And they're trying to convert you to their homosexual agenda. Wait, that's not.
That's not. Sorry. Oh, right. Wrong time period. Wrong decade.
Oh, wait, it's the same thing.
Yeah. QAnon was, but, you know, they were having, look at all the sex trafficking, all this stuff. Let's go storm the Capitol now. Like, they have an agenda, QAnon. Their agenda is political, where maybe the agenda in the 80s was more religious. Either way, there was an agenda being played through the hysteria.
Right.
That's why they were doing it, to get something through. And it ends up hurting so many people.
There's not enough people who believe in a Christian conservative agenda. So we're going to twist the narrative so people come back to us because they're afraid of the other people.
Yeah.
You know.
And like, one of the things I read was that QAnon is basically a religion in of itself. Like, it's like there's a leader and they say, I have like its own little cult.
I can't, being somebody who likes to learn about things and research things, so I have knowledge of things, and I don't sound like a bumbling idiot, although I probably do sometimes.
I know, I always do, but
that's
okay.
It's like, if I don't know something, and if I say something and I'm like, I think that's wrong, I will look it up and tell you I said it wrong and tell you the correct thing. Because that's how I feel. So I'm not like, a lot of this shit that QAnon says is just, how can you, it's so improbable.
Here's the thing
seriously,
that really pisses
every
me
Democrat
off.
is a Satan-worshipping baby blood drinker pedophile. It's not, it's like, there are some of them pedophiles? I'm sure there are. There's pedophiles everywhere, of all religions, of all races, of all political views. To say one person, one group, these people, they're all pedophiles, is nonsense. And if you believe that, then you need to go back to school and relearn shit, because there's something broken in your brain.
Yeah, and like, one of the things that really, really upsets me recently that I've seen, and I thought it was over with, but it's not, is the whole furry thing where people think that the schools are allowing children to have
it was
litter
a
boxes.
joke.
It was a joke.
Somebody said to that one senator or congressman, and he thought it was real. And he was talking about, we're letting kids use litter boxes in school. That never happened. It has never happened.
No school
ever
is going to let a kid poop in a litter box because no one wants to clean that out. Okay?
No, it's not. No.
It's not hygienic. The health codes are being broken. You can't do that.
This started because people don't
It's because of trans.
It is. And
it's bigotry.
It is. It's like another spin on it. It's like, well,
we're going to let them be cats if they want to be?
Yeah. No.
Yeah, I will. I'll let them do anything they want.
Exactly.
It infuriates me.
It infuriates
But the thing is,
I am a mother of a trans child, and I was really fortunate, even that my child went to a very small town, small school, but K through 12, he had a lot of support there, which really shocked me. I'm sorry if anybody listens that works there. Like, I was shocked. You know what I mean?
Well,
but
it's a small town. It's happy.
It's hard. You don't know. Mm-hmm. You know, being a parent, like, you want to protect your kid.
You see it happening
and so
everywhere.
You're on alert. I'm on high alert. And I'm like, don't you say nothing about my kid.
Right.
I will fight you.
Right.
I will knock you down on the ground, and I will fight you, and I will go to jail to protect my child. I will do that. I promise you.
I think any good parent would.
Right. And it's like, I love my child, and I will not hear anybody disparage him, ever.
Well, that thing, and then people I know on Facebook are, and if you're listening to this, sorry, I'm going to call you out. People I know, personally know, not just
Me too.
We're sharing that, and I'm like, that's not true. That's not happening. My daughter told me that there's kids purring and they're gonna use she saw it. I said, well, your daughter's just telling you what we want to hear because it's not true. I've been in schools and I have not seen a litter box in the bathroom yet, for one. And two, that's stupid. Why would any school, I'm telling you right now, no one in that school wants to clean that litter box out.
No kids.
If nothing else.
I'm sorry. The only kids that would be using litter box would be little boys because they can aim.
Yeah.
A little girl is not going to squat over a litter box and go to the bathroom. Why would you do that when you can sit on a nice toilet?
Right. Now, are there furries? Yeah. They are. There are furries. You know, and that's a totally different lifestyle, and that's totally up to you if you want to do it.
Most of those furries don't use the litter boxes. They'll get litter all over that.
They spend a lot of money on that.
They're wearing Depends, is what they're doing. They have Depends on in there because trying to get out of that shit takes a long time. And if you're at a convention, I am not into that lifestyle. I'm just saying. Those costumes are tons of money. Yeah. And those people are wearing Depends.
And I no shame if that's what you're into. I don't like consenting people. If that's what you like.
Yeah. Go for it.
But even if there's a kid in your kid's school that wears cat ears and meows, they're just finding themselves, okay? They're not pooping in litter boxes, okay? Like, it's not happening.
If your child wants to do that, then you're probably have them in therapy. You know what I mean? It's like, that's
just trying to figure out why they're meowing.
Right.
Feeling that way.
You don't want to make them feel bad about themselves, but you need to delve down to the meat of why they feel like they need to do this.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And I think that's with everything. Any kind of things that we do, we should find the reason why we're doing it and why we want to. Because we all should be working on ourselves.
It's like your kid sleeps with a light on in their bedroom. Like, that's bad for their REM sleep. They can't, your circadian rhythm needs dark. So it's like, you do that for your kid. It's a comfort thing. And that's probably, if there is a kid in the class that's acting like that, they probably were sexually abused, or
they have horrible anxiety and that's comforting, or whatever.
They could be autistic. Who knows?
Don't shame them.
Right.
Because there's probably other stuff going on that you don't know about.
But we could guarantee you there's no litter boxes.
I guarantee you. I'd give you if you can prove to me that there's a litter box in the toilets, I will give you all $1 million. And it's not that you put it in there. You can't go put it in there and then tell me. I want proof from the school. All right. Also,
and the kids are actually using
it. I want to see the kids shitting in it. No, I don't want to see that. Never mind. Take it back. Put that back in my mouth. I don't want to see that. No. But it's not happening.
My sister did share on the group chat a picture of her cat's turd because he crapped in the litter box and it was standing up on end. And I'm like, thanks, Renee. Thanks, Renee. I really needed to see that. Thanks a lot.
Even thinking about I was a couple more things I wanted to share because
after the standing on end cat turd, go for it.
Top
that, Colleen.
How some people tied the COVID to demon and devils.
Yes.
The pandemic, was wrapped into the whole evil thing. So a Newsmax correspondent. Her name's Emerald something or other. I don't really care about her name. We know Newsmax isn't a news thing. It's an opinion-based network, and it says it right in its description. So if you think it's news, it's not. It's opinion-based network, which, like I said, if you read the description of it, they have to say that because it's not factual. Anyway, there was a correspondent on Newsmax that, in a tweet, suggested that the COVID vaccine contained a tracing device linked to the devil. This is the woman on the thing that people are listening to give them information, saying that there's a tracing device that's linked to the devil in you, and you're believing things she's saying. Let's just think about that.
Think about that really hard. Using all your brain, even 10% of your brain cells. Just use a few of them. So
another person, which you've probably heard of, is Marcus Lamb. He was the founder of the Christian nationalist group Daystar.
Yay.
He told his followers the pandemic was from Satan, and the only cure was your faith in God. And do not get the vaccine. Marcus Lamb died of COVID-19 because he apparently didn't have enough faith in God.
Or God is punishing him
for being
a dick.
Idiot and spreading lies. Fear-mongering and exploiting people's fears is disgusting. Do not play on people's fears. Stop making people afraid of for what's going to happen to their children. Stop doing that. Stop making people think. You know who's molesting and doing things to your children? Someone you know.
Right.
Sadly.
Probably somebody who you're related to.
And that's why we educate our children.
Right.
And protect them and be proactive about it. It is not your fault if this happens to your child. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying we want to blame like this. It's easier to blame like this big evil thing than to look at the fact that it's happening in our lives with people you know, because it's easier to blame Satan.
Because you don't want to think that somebody that you know that you're friends with would be
right, or that you could have in any way prevented it happening. Right. And it's horrible and a horrible thing, but you need to know that that's true.
A lot of these predators have been at it for a while, and they know how to hide. So, you know.
And there are predators out there, and there are horrible people. There's horrible people everywhere, of all walks of life, of all political views, like you said, of all races. There's people out there doing horrible things, and people are horrible. There's a lot of them that are bad, but there's also really awesome ones. Don't play on people's fear about their kids. That's so horrible. It's a horrible thing to do, and to push an agenda, and to try to discredit other communities of people. It's sickening. It's disgusting. Don't do it, and don't buy into it.
The only agenda that's okay to push is the homosexual agenda.
That's right. The drag queens can read stories to your kids in school. Guess what? They're not going to be gay if they're not gay.
I know.
And if they were, they're going to be gay because they're gay.
We're going off topic here, which is not unusual for us ever. But the thing that bugs me is like, we can't say gay in school because it's going to make your kids gay. I go, so how about in the 50s when nobody said that the word gay and they're gay people? What caused them to be gay?
Well, the whole thing is ridiculous.
It's like these kids who have been growing up gay have been reading books about straight people their whole lives, and they're still gay. Exactly. So guess what? If your kid reads a book that has two moms or two dads, it's not going to make them gay. They're going to still be who they are.
But you know what it will do? It'll make your child more accepting and kind and empathetic and welcoming of a friend who has two moms. Or it'll make your child more accepting of their friend that is gay. Because it's going to them realize that it doesn't matter if the person's gay or straight, if they're a good person.
Right.
Because that's what counts. So if we can make our children empathetic to others who are different than them, we could change the world. But instead we want to hide things that are different from our children for some reason, and then make them not understand, and then eventually not like things that are different than them, and that's wrong.
Or it could make them feel bad about themselves and feel that they can't be accepted for who they really are.
Exactly.
And that's why the rates of suicide among the LGBTQ youth are so high.
Yes, exactly. We need to normalize that it's okay to be gay if you're gay.
And you know what?
It's okay if you're not.
And if somebody's religion is different than yours, as long as they're not sacrificing children.
Which, no one's doing that.
Nobody.
I mean, there's people that kill children that are psychopaths and sociopaths, yes. But the Satanic Church isn't
I
condoning
can
it.
guarantee you that most of the people who have killed children have all gone to Christian church.
Yeah.
Probably 80% of them or more. So,
And we're like,
think about
had
that.
some kind of trauma with it. Like a overzealous parent,
Right?
you know, like hyper Christian, whatever. Like that tends to be have more of a trauma on people than I've heard about anything satanic. I'm not part of the Satanic Church. I don't, you know, whatever, but I don't care if you are.
On the satanic cult narrative, I just watched a show on Netflix called Devil in Ohio about the satanic cult. That show is freaking awesome. You should watch it. It's really good. And the music soundtrack in it is fabulous. Just saying. It's creepy, and I'm listening to it. I'm like, ooh, I'm singing about the devil. I'm singing about the devil.
The devil.
The devil. Even though the cult is bad in it, obviously, but the show is really good, and you should watch it.
Cool. I'm going to watch it.
It creeped me out. Because
it's
like
Halloween
time then. It's like... Ooh.
So I hope that... I told you I was going to deep dive into this one, and we both were going to get real passionate about it, so...
Kelly knew ahead of time, like, oh yeah, we're passionate. We're passionate girls!
Well, and the thing is, because it all ties into things that we see today, I think, too, and, like, it ties into anything that's alternative from what the traditional American values, what they used to say.
Just because it's different than you doesn't mean it's bad.
No. So anyway, I deep dived into our first spooky season episode.
We got spooky.
But, because it's the scariest thing to me.
It is.
If you want to scare me, Mass Hysteria will do it. So that's why I thought that would be a perfect one to do.
Honestly, the scariest book I've read recently has been Handmaid's Tale, and that was a few years ago. I still have nightmares because I'm watching the show, and it's terrifying.
Horrifying. And some of the parallels are even more horrifying.
Yes, and I'm like, oh, shit. And it's like, you really, this could never, you think that could never happen as you're reading this book. And then all of a sudden
you're like, oh my God.
You're reading the book, and you're like,
some of that is happening.
This is like, now.
This is
creepy. Oh my God. This is horrible. Oh my God. And it's like, I had nightmares after reading that book. And I think I read that book, I am embarrassed to say, during quarantine, during COVID, I read that. And I hadn't read it before.
I never read it. I just watched the show.
Ruben read it in school.
In school?
Yeah.
They had people reading that in school?
Darby read it in school?
Like, the assigned?
Yes!
Really?
Tale. I think he did. But yeah, it's like Margaret Atwood. It was written in the 80s. Yeah. So, I mean, it's like, reading it is like, if you want to as an adult woman, and you want to give yourself nightmares, read A Handmaid's Tale, because it's horrible and terrifying. I mean,
I was horrified and terrified a little bit by the Scarlet Letter. And that was
me too.
That was just a tip.
With the guys flagellating themselves? No, thanks.
The whole thing was creepy.
Yes.
Oh. But anyway, they should follow us. I'm sorry, we just went on forever. This is the longest episode I think we've ever had. But we were passionate about this one. Okay.
Yes.
If you want to see pictures of our episodes, you should go follow us on Facebook and Instagram.
You can send us an email if you want to reach out and send us an email. I'm an idiot. Don't get that out. Keep that in, because, it's almost 8 o'clock at night, and we're punchy.
We're still going.
Woo! And we still have a terrible trends to record. Yeah. Woo! And now, let me get back to, like, our link tree. Jesus Christ. As I swear. Send us an email at thecousinsweird@gmail.com, or you can send us a message through Facebook or Instagram, and we'd be happy to respond.
And we want to know what you guys are interested in. If you have a cool episode we could do for spooky season, let us know.
Ari, my old roommate from Pittsburgh, from college, sent me a nice little message through Facebook Messenger, and I wanted to thank you for reaching out. It was really nice.
Thank you for listening.
Yes, thanks so much for listening. I'm glad that you're being entertained, and she was tickled about my Julian Sands, because she remembers when she lived with me how much I was obsessed with Julian Sands back in like 95.
And our link tree is going to be in the description. You can find us everywhere on all the platforms. And you should make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode. And the best way to support us is always to share our episodes and tell your friends about us. Because if you're listening, you're weird, and your friends are weird too, and they might like us. And what else? Oh, Patreon! Patreon.com, thecousinsweird, for $1 a month. You're a freaky friend.
And you get all our extra episodes and a
free sticker.
When you sign up.
$5 a month, you're a terrible trender.
And you get ad-free episodes. You get access to all the bonus content. And you get a yearly gift And you get a monthly not one-on-one, but
Another Patreon.
You get a special Patreon group chat.
And we think you're awesome, and we appreciate you, and we love you, and
keep listening.
Yeah.
Please support us, and
we love you.
stay freaky.
Bye.